What's going on, y'all? This is BoxingWave. Finally ready to move on from this Mayweather-Maidana thing. You know, I see not much has gone on this week since the fight. You know, everyone is still talking about that. You can even go on major websites and they're still putting out 3-4 articles a day in regards to the Mayweather-Maidana fight, okay? So I'm finally ready to start doing more videos. There's a lot of upcoming fights, maybe not major fights, but there's a lot of good fights coming up, okay? So let's start off with Kirkland, James Kirkland and Gabriel Rosado, okay? Now, before I get into how I think the fight is gonna play out, just wanted to bring one point. You know, I think every boxing fan has their one or two or maybe even several fighters that they just, no matter how successful they become, you know, they're not really going to be sold on that particular fighter. You know, you have Floyd Mayweather. I mean, he's the greatest example. You know, there's a lot of people that just don't believe he's as good as most people think he is, or as he thinks he is. For many reasons, you know, it has to do with his opponents or whatever. You know, people just feel that he doesn't pick the best opponents at that given time, okay? So that's like the number one thing that most people have against Floyd. Then you have like a Canelo Alvarez, where people argue that, you know, he fought guys that came up from 147 to fight him. You know, and even in the fights that he fought, like the Horse and Trout or the Iris Landy Lara, people feel that he lost those fights. Like, he hasn't clearly beaten any like good or top junior middleweights, okay? So people are never just going to be satisfied with certain fighters, all right? That's just how it is. James Kirkland is one of those guys when it comes to me. James Kirkland. And I'm going to explain. He's never really stepped up, okay? I think out of all the people on his resume, I would say that Carlos Molina was the best opponent for him. And even in that fight, I thought he was losing every single round up to that last round where Molina was disqualified because someone from his corner jumped in. All right, you know, whether they should have kept it as a win for Kirkland, you know, that's debatable. I'm not going to get into that. But that's a fight that I really don't give him credit for, because up into the knockdown, which Carlos Molina did get right back up, he didn't really do anything in that fight. I don't remember what round it was because I haven't seen it in a long time. But James Kirkland has to be one of those guys that, you know, I'm still not sold on him. You know, no disrespect. I like him as a fighter. I think, you know, he brings really good fights, you know, because of his style. But that's just one of those fighters that I'm just not sold on. I'm not saying that I would never be sold on him. I'm not a hater or anything like that. But as far as competition, he just hasn't fought none of the top guys still, because of a lot of the setbacks he's had in his personal life. You know, if you look at his record, he really doesn't fight that much. You know, he basically fights once a year. He's been fighting that way for a while now, since the loss to Ishida. I'm not basing it solely on that loss, because it was a bad night. I mean, he's fought guys that's tougher than Ishida, that punch harder than him. I know Ann Wolf wasn't his coach at the time, or his trainer. But, you know, I mean, things happen. But I'm just saying, from what I've seen, there's a lot of top 10 guys that I think could beat James Kirkland. That's just my opinion. He hasn't really fought any of those top 10 guys except Carlos Molina. Carlos Molina is one of the most pity-pat punchers of today, as good as I think he is. Now, Gabe Rosado is like the total opposite, where he's fighting top guys, but he has a lot of losses. But with him, with all the complaining that he does, all the excuses, Jermell Charlo is no excuse, because he lost pretty much every round in that fight, got outboxed. You know, Golovkin, they stopped the fight because of the cut. I mean, he wasn't winning the fight anyway. I don't think he was going to win, but I mean, his game plan, he was doing fairly well against Golovkin, better than some of the other fighters that Golovkin has knocked out. That fight was stopped because of the cut. Quillin fight was stopped because of the cut. He was actually, the momentum was shifting from Quillin to Rosado in that fight when the fight was actually stopped. Okay. So he lost in that fight. He lost to Golovkin. You know, he complained about being robbed in a Jay Leon Love fight. I think Rosado won the fight, but I don't think it was a robbery. I thought the fight could have gone either way. So Gabe Rosado is a good fighter. You know, he's gonna always get good fights. You know, he's never gonna go down and try to fight a lower level opponent just to pick up a win. He's just gonna keep getting in. You know, he tested out this BKB thing. He fought Brian Vera, which was a pretty good fight. You know, up close with Brian Vera. I mean, it was a good fight. You know, it was. You know, it's like a hybrid of boxing and just, you know, whatever. But he did pretty good in that fight. But he won that fight. But as far as boxing is concerned, he's on a losing streak. Now, with that being said, I know Rosado is coming off of a lot of losses. I know James Kirkland is a big puncher. Well, he usually wins his fights by knockout from accumulation of punches. He's not like one big punch knockout power to me. He outworks his opponents. When James Kirkland's on his A game, he will outwork you. You know, he outworked Angulo, and this is when Angulo was in his prime. Okay, Angulo went in there with, you know, the right idea. I mean, he did drop Kirkland early in the fight, but I feel like he outpunched himself, and this is what makes James Kirkland so dangerous, because he gets extreme training from Ann Wolf. Okay, he is a brawler. There's no technique in his game. He's just gonna outwork you until the knockdown comes. And Angulo punched himself out in the first round. And if you punch yourself out and you cannot stop, if you get fatigued and you can't knock out James Kirkland, you're gonna lose the fight. You're gonna lose the fight. There's no way you're gonna go 12 rounds with this dude. Okay. Same thing that happened to Glen Tapia. He was outboxing Kirkland, but he went in there with the wrong game plan. I guess leading up to the fight, all he saw was the Ishida fight. You know, he saw that and was like, oh, I'm gonna go in there and do the same thing. I'm gonna go in there and knock him out. And it didn't work out, you know, because he was doing well, but once his back touched the ropes, it was over. I mean, I went back and watched the fight the other day, and Glen Tapia was doing well, and he was moving okay, but he started fatiguing as early as the first round, and his back was against the ropes in the first round. James Kirkland came in and started working on him, and you know where that fight ended. He got brutally beaten. I think that fight should have stopped maybe at least 2 rounds before the end of that fight. So Gabe Rosado, I mean, I know this is not going to be the popular pick, okay? I know James Kirkland is probably going to be favored by almost everyone to win this fight. But I'm going to go with Gabe Rosado for this fight. I think Gabe Rosado, I've seen him fight a lot. You know, I'm a big fan. And I watched them both fight a lot. Gabe, you know, showed me some things in his more recent fights. He has very good movement when he uses it, when he needs to, okay? You see in a Golovkin fight, up until the time that the fight was stopped, he didn't have his back against the ropes. He kept moving and moving and moving and moving. You know, this guy was a guy I feel was a better boxer than Glen Tapia at this point. You know, Glen Tapia, I just need to see more from him. I think Gabe Rosado is a better boxer than Glen Tapia. I think he's a better mover than Glen Tapia, okay? I think he's a guy that won't be against the ropes. If you go back and watch the Angulo fight, and I know Rosado lost it Angulo years ago. He got in trouble because he was against the ropes. He was against the corners. Since then, you fight a guy like Golovkin. I noticed in that fight that he was moving the entire time. And Golovkin is excellent at cutting off the ring. He's a harder puncher than Kirkland. He's a more precise puncher. And Rosado, for what I seen, I mean, he was losing, like I said, but he was doing pretty well. I think he's going to do that with Kirkland. Okay. Now, can he stop Kirkland? He could. He will have to play it smart, you know. Kirkland gets knocked down, but he'll get back up. You know, even in the Ishida loss, he lost the fight on his feet. You know, he wasn't completely knocked out. He was fine. They just stopped the fight. I think Gabe can actually outbox James Kirkland. And I'm going to go for him. I know it's not the pick, but I think he can outbox and keep moving. My thing is, chances are he's going to have a problem with his cut. Fight might get stopped. You know, James Kirkland's going to keep coming. And we've seen in recent memory that Gabe Rosado's, you know, they always stop the fight for him because of his cut. He has a bad cut over his left eye. And if it opens up, he's going to bleed. And, you know, there's a good chance that that might actually happen. All right. Doesn't happen in every fight. It did happen in the Quillen fight. It happened in the Golovkin fight. I don't remember it. I don't recall it happening in the Jamel Charlo. If it did, it wasn't bad enough to a point where they stopped the fight. Okay, I think it might have opened up in the Jamel Charlo fight too. Kirkland is probably going to be favored to win because, you know, he has the power and he has the work ethic, and he's just going to keep pushing and keep pressuring Rosado. But I'm going for Rosado for this one. I think Rosado might pull off the upset. All right. So anyway, I mean, I love the fight. I think they're fighting on the undercard of Bernard Hopkins and Kovalev, so in Atlantic City. So, you know, I'm gonna try to go to that fight. But I love this fight. But I'm gonna go for my boy Gabe Rosado for this one. All right. So anyway, let me know what you guys think. I know you guys are probably gonna slander me because James Kirkland is a beast, but I think Gabe is gonna give him this loss. I think this is gonna be Gabe's first win in a while. All right. So make sure you leave comments and subscribe to the channel. Peace.